E.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
E.
Why is it so fun to say the letter E?
That's a question for all of us.
I'm just thinking about the Farquaad meme.
E.
E.
All right. So what I do a little clap to sync the audio.
Oh, I love doing that. I've never done it.
Do you want to do the honors?
Heck yeah.
All right. So just clap twice over the microphone. We are live.
Whoa.
Crazy. I mean, we aren't any less live than we were before, but at least I'll have synced audio.
It says a lot about society.
Today, I'm interviewing my dear friend John. I've known John since grade 1, I think. It's been a freaking long time. Before we get going, really, I would love to acknowledge that we are on the land of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish First Nations. Because we're freaking here. I guess the reason I want to interview John today, he has impressed me greatly in that he taught himself how to code to raise money for his education, and I'm just so impressed. It's incredible, truly.
Well, hello.
Hello, love you, John.
I'm honored to be here.
Thank you for coming on. I wanted to structure this in kind of like a 3-parter. I'd love to talk to you a bit about programming and computers.
I know a lot about that.
Talk about music, because I think music's a lot of fun. And then we'll get into some city planning and see where that goes. So I'm curious, on the city planning front, just so we get a little taster of that, what did you do today?
I rode buses for fun. And every time I tell people that I'm doing that, they always ask me why. And I don't have a good answer for them. I think ever since I was a kid, I like collecting things. So I had like a big bottle cap collection and then like a big coin collection. And I realized that I like collecting bus routes. So that's what I'm doing.
In the Vancouver area, or greater Vancouver area, do you know which ones you haven't done yet?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot. There's like 300 buses. So it will take me like a couple years to ride all of them.
All right. Well, I wish you the best of luck, John.
Thank you.
So going into programming, I'm curious, what inspired you to learn, and kind of what were the first steps for you to get into coding?
Yeah, so actually I kind of owe it all to my uncle, who just like he's a computer programmer, and he also like he's very competent. Like he taught himself everything. And yeah, when I was like 12, he tried to teach me to code, and he gave me like a Linux laptop. And it didn't have a GUI, so it was only a terminal interface, and I had to like figure it out. And I didn't figure it out. I had no idea what I was doing, and I didn't get anywhere. I totally gave up. But I think that like planted a seed in my mind. And then, yeah, it wasn't until high school, till my friend Kevin, he was like, he found this deal for like website hosting, and it was like $1.01 or something, and you could host a website. And I was like, why not? I'll learn how to make a website. And so yeah, I made the like most insane website I could. And I was just going crazy with like animations and stuff, and that was so much fun. I was like, I want to keep doing this.
Was that Webtigo?
That was webtigo.ca, which unfortunately does no longer exist.
Damn.
I mean, it's still online, but yeah. Yeah, and then from there in school, I was very lucky to be part of an engineering program where we had to use Arduino for some projects. And so I liked that so much that I just went off on my own thing and learned to code. And then from there, I just kept working at it.
That's amazing. So I know that you pretty much self-taught yourself Python before going to a coding like course. What did the process of going through a programming design course look like for you?
Yeah, so I actually knew how to code like quite well going into that like programming course. It's called like a boot camp, and basically the idea is that they sit you down for 3 months, and then they just like blast you with information. They're like, this is how you do this is how you do that, and it's like, it's a lot. But they teach you a lot of like practical skills and stuff that would be, it's not impossible to learn yourself, but it's a lot easier if you have someone to tell you. But I already knew how to code quite well going into that, so it was kind of like it was quite easy for me. So honestly, it was just kind of like a real specification. Like, you know how to do this officially, like you've gone through a course. Yeah, but it also filled in a lot of gaps that I didn't know. But I think the thing about programming is that I was gonna say it's very hard. It's impossible to know everything. You will not know everything, and so when you started a new job, you have to learn things. Like it's just gonna be part of it. So even not knowing, like even though I didn't know like everything, of course I didn't know everything, but like even though it didn't teach me everything, it still taught me the skills to like learn quickly, to like learn new things.
Yes, definitely the skill to learn is a really valuable one.
Oh yeah.
That was a big mantra in the STEM program you completed, right?
Yeah, that's right.
What's the mantra?
Fail fast, fail often. Shout out to STEM. It's a very true motto.
Yeah, I mean, what better thing to do than to make mistakes and learn from them?
Exactly.
I think it's a great mindset to have, to be a learner. But I'm curious now. So you got out of your code core, you get a job at a company doing software.
Yeah, so I started as an intern, and that's kind of funny because they didn't really know what to do with me. They weren't really planning on having an intern. They just kind of was very impromptu. So they were just kind of throwing stuff at me, which was kind of fun. And I remember the first thing that they threw at me was there's this iPad app for our application, and the dude that wrote everything in like, I don't know, like half a year or something, and then just left. So like no one knew how to, like, no one had touched this in like years, and there was a problem with it, and they're like, you fix it. They're like, we don't know what we're doing, so this is your job now. Like we have better things to do, so like go off and do this. And they thought it would take me like 2 weeks, and I figured it out in like 4 days or something. And they were like, we don't know what to do with you. So that's kind of funny. And yeah, so, but after that, I did a lot of data aggregation. I actually worked a lot with data as an intern, which was kind of funny. Had access to these like really powerful like data tools, and they're just like, go figure it out. Like I didn't really get much direction, which is fair because there were more important things going on at the company. But yeah, after that, and then I started doing like proper software development, like writing code and building websites and stuff.
Cool. So what company did you work for? What were the services they provided?
I worked for a company called WineDirect, and I don't know if anyone is familiar with Shopify, but basically Shopify makes websites so that people can sell things. So if you want to sell something online, you might go to Shopify and you can sign up and create your online site to sell things. And so WineDirect basically did that, but just for wineries, because there's a lot of like specific tools and like regulations that they need to follow. So yeah, that's what they did.
Crazy. It's a great idea, and I'm sure a lot of wine snobs were happy that you were doing work behind the scenes.
It's true. At one point, I fixed a bug in something, and one of my coworkers was like, "You could walk into any winery in BC, tell them that you fixed that bug, and they would probably give you free wine." And I was like, "Ooh." People are actually like using this thing that I work on. Like they depend on it for their like daily lives.
That's true. Crazy. And it's not the only project that you've worked on that people use regularly. I know you have a bot going on.
That is true. I have a Discord bot, and I don't know how to explain Discord for those who don't know what it is, but it's basically a messaging client. And so I have an automated bot that responds to commands.
Amazing. I wanna dig more into that a bit later, but before, I would love to talk about just like programming in general, because I am completely unbeknownst to it. It's kind of another world that just flies over my head most of the time. So I'm curious as to what makes the language of computers so powerful. And I guess in your case in particular, if I'm correct, you use Python most of the time?
I do. I've used Python a lot, but now I use a language called TypeScript, which is kind of like better JavaScript, if anyone knows what JavaScript is. JavaScript is a language that powers all websites. So anything that runs in the browser uses JavaScript, basically, because no other language works. So I use that one. But yeah, I think the easy answer is abstraction, which is basically computers are dumb. Like you have to tell them exactly what to do. Like they can't figure stuff out for you. But the thing is that people have written programs that like deal with that. So you don't have to deal with the low-level stuff of telling the computer exactly what to do. You can give it more high-level instructions. Like like a website, for example. When you program a website, you're not telling the computer, which bits to move in the, processor. Someone has figured that out, and you're just kind of using that. And there's a lot of like abstraction built up so that you can do like lots of really like high level things without having to worry about what's going on like under the hood.
Yeah,
it just kind of happens.
I get what you mean. So the language gives you kind of an interface that that would allow you to communicate with the computer itself, because otherwise it would just be so far lost in what's actually happening, you wouldn't be able to do anything.
Exactly. And just to be clear, you totally can interact with the computer and tell it which bits to move and stuff. And actually there's a bit of a like system of high and low level languages. So some like low level meaning closer to that machine code, and high level meaning farther away. So you actually totally can program in like low level, like you do this and you do that, and someone needs to do that, but not me.
Cool. I had no idea, so I was quite curious. I'm curious about computers outthinking us, because I know AI is a big thing that people talk about nowadays, and I know you've made your own like neural networks. I'm curious as to how a neural network functions, kind of like what it's based off of, as well as what your ideas on the future of it will be.
Yeah, so before I did a project on AI where I studied it and tried to create my own, and I'm not going to lie, it did not go well. I tried making my own from scratch, like writing every part of it, and it sucked. But it was really cool to learn. I had to learn exactly how everything worked, so I could program it. And before I did that, I thought it was magic. I like didn't it's like a black box that you put stuff into, and then how does it like know things? But then I realized it's just math, and not only that, it's just brute force, trial and error, like just like so quickly that it learns. So. There's all sorts of like machine learning like joke comics. I don't know if I can like retell them, but basically what it does is it guesses. So you give it a problem. So if I can think of a sample problem, let's say you have a bunch of images of cats and dogs, and you want to sort them into cats and dogs, right, into two separate piles. So if you were to create a machine learning application to do that, you'd have to have a big pile of cats and dogs. That's called your training data, right? So a bunch of images you have, and you basically feed it into the AI, and what it does is it guesses, right? So it takes one image and it guesses completely randomly, like, is this a cat or dog? Well, I don't know, like cat. And then you tell it, yes, that was a cat, or no, that was a dog. And then it does a bunch of math. So what a neural network is the network. It's like a network of, I guess, neurons is what they would be called, but it's basically just a bunch of nodes, and things that connect the nodes. And basically, you can think of it as a big like switchboard of dials and knobs and stuff, right? So if you were a human trying to, play the part of an AI, you would have this big board with dials on it, right? And each one you can turn, and each one has a value. And so every time you get, and let's just say it's some complicated formula, right, where you put an image in and you get either cat or dog. And every time you get a cat or a dog, if you get it right, then you turn the dials like more in that direction. And if you get it wrong, you turn it in the other direction. So you basically turn all the knobs so that like it's just math, right? So all you're trying to do is turn the knobs so that they produce a more correct answer next time. I don't know if this makes sense. It's kind of hard to describe, but that's kind of all it is a machine just tweaking a bunch of knobs at random. Well, not random. There's some complicated math that I don't really understand, but it's just tweaking knobs. So I don't know. It feels like we're very far away from like real AI, because like superhuman intelligence or like sci-fi kind of thing. I don't know. It just feels like we're very far away from that. And there's other types of artificial intelligence. Like that's not the only type, but our computers are just not strong enough to do that. So I'm kind of skeptical that we'll ever have some sort of evil AI that will wipe us out. But I don't know, be a cool way to go.
Yeah, definitely. It's probably better than us killing ourselves with the planet.
Yeah,
Kill ourselves with technology instead.
exactly.
But God only knows. It sounds curious. That's the only type of AI I know about. Are there any others that you know about that most people wouldn't consider?
I don't know. I can't remember any. The only like other one I know, which is kind of cheating, which is a neural network of neural networks. So it's actually how YouTube's algorithm works. It's basically an algorithm that creates algorithms. Which I don't know if that makes sense, but basically what you're doing is getting an AI to create AIs for you.
Yeah, because
So
everyone needs their own AI for their YouTube recommendations, and there has to be a bigger system that makes it for people.
it's more than that. So there is still just one like AI recommending things, but that AI is created by an AI, and those AI were created by Google engineers. So the Google engineers actually have no idea not only how the algorithm works, but how it was created. They don't know anything about it because it was created by an AI.
Whoa.
Because what the AI does is it basically creates a whole bunch of different algorithms and then picks the best one.
That's crazy.
It's really cool.
That's amazing. I
yeah.
had no idea. No wonder YouTube recommendations are such a crapshoot.
There's a great Tom Scott video about that. I have to shout this out, where he talks about the YouTube algorithm, and he talks about that black box kind of thing, and AI creating AI, but also like the problems with it. Because the thing with AI is you have to give it a right answer, right? You have to tell it this is good or this is bad. And in YouTube's case, every time they changed that, people would exploit it. So they did, I think they started with clicks, right? Like, how many clicks can a video get? But then people started lying in their thumbnails and titles and stuff. And that was like over-generating clicks and, rewarding that. So the algorithm being a crapshoot is it's a mix of a lot of things, and that's kind of one of them is YouTube doesn't really know what to ask for.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different things to judge, and there's so much content to show to people. So
exactly,
it's a hard thing to get right, but
and it's crazy that it works so well too. Like,
yeah, I mean,
it's wild.
It's a very addictive machine to be a part of.
Definitely,
but it works. I get it. I do want to go back to your bot because I think it's amazing.
Okay.
It connects to Last FM, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And well, I don't know. You should explain it. What does it do? How long have you worked on it? And how many lines of code is it?
Yeah. So what it is it is a bot that interacts with Last.fm, and for those who don't know, Last.fm is a website that keeps track of your music listening. So every time you listen to a song, it writes it down, and then you can query it and say, well, how many times did I listen to this artist or this song? And so I have a bot that interacts with that. And so not only does it like do the simple stuff like how many times did I play this artist, but it does other interesting stuff like how many people in this community am I in, like how many people have listened to this artist, who listened to this artist first out of all the people that I know. So there's a lot of extractions that I do with that. What was the second question?
How long have you worked on it, and how many lines of code is it?
I have a counter in my bot actually. I recorded the date that I first pushed to the repository, like I first started it. So I have a little counter in my bot that shows how many days old it is. I think it's at 460 or something like that. So a year and a half ish.
Young boy. Wait, I shouldn't have assumed its gender. Sorry, John.
It's okay. And what was the last question?
How many lines of code?
Oh yeah, it has I think. Well, there's kind of 3 separate parts. So I think in total it's about 70,000. Nice one. I think it's about 70,000 lines of code, which to the average person means absolutely nothing.
It means nothing to me.
And I'm sorry, I don't know if I can pick up a good analogy for it. Just for context, the application I worked on at work was 2 million lines of code.
2 million?
And that had been being written for over a decade by many teams of people.
Crazy.
So
that's a lot of code, I guess.
Yeah.
Also, just so you know, this is cherry juice, not wine.
Yeah. Keep it PG.
Gotta keep it PG. Well. For now at least. Soon there will be more debauchery. Perhaps.
Exciting.
This is gonna be my transition into music because I think music is such a fantastic thing. But
Me too.
How has Last.fm, sites like Rate Your Music and Discord impacted your experience with music?
Yeah, like extremely wildly. I don't know if it's like a personal thing, but as soon as I got into music communities and like started talking to people about music, I got way more interested in it. And not only that, I started listening to like a lot of different music, like stuff I'd never considered before. And some of my favorite music is recommendations from other people. And I think that rules because I can get excited about music with people, and that's something I'd never really done before, except with my dad. But he's lame and listens to old music. No, I'm just kidding.
Gotta expand the horizon sometimes, of course.
Sorry, Dad. But yeah. So it was crazy, and I recommend that anyone like really interested in music should join them because it's very fun. As long as you meet the right people, because there are a lot of snobby music nerds out there.
You gotta get the chill ones.
Yeah, you gotta find some cool people.
That's always the struggle, isn't it? Finding cool people. Freaking lots of weirdos out there.
Very true.
But as far as music goes, I'm curious to get into some recommendations. I know you said you've got some good recommendations from people that you've met online. Are there any albums that really stand out to you, or any artists?
Yeah, I'd say. Oh, this is a loaded question.
This is a heavily loaded question, John. Why don't we make like a list? We're trying to find like 10 or 15.
I can think we have really couple good ones. I'm just gonna pick weird albums because they're way more interesting.
Bet.
One of my favorite albums that someone recommended to me was Candy Claus. I think it's called Sirius and Calypso Into the Deep Time. And it's this crazy like shoegaze tropical dream pop kind of like really out there album, and I really like that. That's the first time I've ever heard shoegaze, which is a genre of music and hard to describe. I remember like reading many times what shoegaze is before I listened to it, and I just listened to it and I'm like, okay, I get it now. Like that's what that is. It makes sense. So I can't describe it. I'm sorry, but it's very like dreamy and washed out. And that album was really cool because that led me to get into a new genre that I'd never, heard before. And now it's like my favorite genre. So
shoegaze?
Yeah. Shoegaze. It's because they gaze at their shoes while playing it. That's the idea.
Crazy.
It's crazy. So shout out to my friend Cadzoodle.
Cadzoodle.
He's the one that recommended it to me.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. That's one. We got more to go.
Okay. I got two other good ones. The second one I found on Rate Your Music, which is it's a site where you can rate music. Shocking, I know. But it also has really good like music discovery tools. Basically, you can kind of click through and look through things. And I just saw something that looked really interesting. I liked the album cover, and I liked the whole vibe, and I was like, I'm going to listen to this. And it was really good. And they're called Mookie Mookie Man Man Sue. They're Korean like something. I don't even really know what genre of music it is. It's just weird. But they just like they play instruments. Okay, I'm gonna be brutally honest, really poorly, and they cannot sing. But their music is just so fun, and it's like, I don't know. I always, whenever I listen to them, I just like feel the fun like secondhand. It doesn't matter that the music like kind of sucks, but it's kind of amazing because it sucks. Because normally when you listen to music, it's so polished and like clean, and well, not all music, but typically, good, right? Like someone's put effort into it. But this, they don't care at all. They're just like singing they're just having fun, right? And they just put that out. I don't know. So I ended up, even though like it's kind of terrible, I still ended up really enjoying it because it was very fun. And I recommend everyone at least, try it.
What is it called? Mookie Mookie?
Mookie Mookie Man Man Sue. They only have one album, which is called 2012. So.
And at least it's dated.
I don't even know if it came out in 2012.
It just is 2012.
Yeah, it just is 2012. I don't recommend I don't remember 2012 well enough to know if it sums up the year or not. But
God only knows.
Yeah, true.
Certainly, we're too baby-faced to remember being alive in 2012.
Very unfortunately true.
Did you have another one? You said you had a few more, and then you only said one. Anything else that really comes to mind?
Oh yeah. I can't talk about cool music that I recommend without talking about K-pop, because I love K-pop and I think it's kind of underrated. I think it's very underrated. I know, because unfortunately, I think a lot of the K-pop that goes like viral and that like people hear is not the most interesting. But my favorite K-pop album, and also most people's favorite K-pop album, like most people that I talk to about K-pop, they're like, yeah, that album is very good. Like, I don't know if I've ever met anyone that dislikes it. And it's a lot of people's gateway into K-pop. Like, it's their first K-pop album. It's called Max and Match by an artist called Luna. And it's just like extremely high quality pop music. I don't really have much else to say about it than that, but it's very cool. And if you like pop music at all, I would recommend that you listen to it because it's very good.
Cool. Those are some great recommendations. I remember listening to Muki Muki Manmansu with you, I think.
Yeah.
Is that this one where they destroyed the instruments?
Yeah, they have a live performance where where one of the members like cuts up a drum with a hatchet and then puts it in a basket and starts walking around the audience handing it out to people while the other person is just like screaming over, like, it's incredible. I forgot what the song is called, but
yeah, it's something.
It's really good.
It's something else.
Might be the most funny video I've ever seen.
That's a bold statement, but a respected one.
Thank you.
Oh, no worries. Other than just like things that you would say are cool recommendations, are there any albums that you've really connected with emotionally, or has music been more of like a pastime hobby? I guess I don't know how to.
Yeah, no, I think I get it. And yeah, it definitely feels like more of a hobby to me. I don't really pay attention to lyrics. I'm sorry. I feel like it's kind of like I don't know, not good. But yeah, I don't really pay attention to lyrics, so it's more of like I don't know. I don't think it's very rare that I connect emotionally with an album, or, you know, like I feel things from an album. Typically it's like pretty surface level. So, you know, yeah. And I also, like, my favorite thing about music is just kind of listening to it and imagining like people making it. Because sometimes I listen to music and I'm like, how on earth did someone make this? Like, how did they sit down and like, you know, like type on a computer and make this? Like, this is nuts. You know, like, who thought of this? So I really like that, and like picking out different sounds and stuff and imagining the person like creating it.
That's definitely one way to go about doing it.
It works for me.
Oh, totally.
And I tend to enjoy most music.
Definitely, and that's a rare skill. Most people can't do that, and he's really not kidding when he says that.
I think I'm getting into pretty much every genre. I liked a classical song last week. And I was
Crazy.
like, oh, it's happening. Finally getting into classical.
Going in deep. Okay. I'm curious as to how paying attention to music is important.
Oh, well, I don't think it's super important unless you like want to. Like, or do you mean like paying attention as in like listening to it and talking about it, or do you mean like literally paying attention to the sound?
I think I meant it in a more literal way, though it's open to interpretation by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just kind of curious as to pick your brain about it, because I know you do have your own kind of particular way of listening to music, which I will ask you about after. But I'm curious as to just what like the attention component of it is, I guess. Yeah.
So I know I talked about that website, Rate Your Music, earlier, where you can, rate music. And it's not just like you are assigning numbers. So when I started using that website, I had to pay attention to the music I was listening to rate it, which sounds kind of, you know, annoying. I know like rating things is kind of annoying, because if you give something a bad rating, it's like, well, like, what an asshole. Like, but yeah. But, you know, obviously I don't really mean it like that. But as soon as I started having to pay attention to the music to rate it, so I could, like, you know, assign a number to it, I ended up enjoying more music. So weirdly, getting into a site where you critique music made me enjoy it more, because I started paying attention to more of it. And I don't know why it made me enjoy it more, but it definitely did. Whenever I listen to music, I enjoy it, like, or whenever I like really pay attention to the music that I'm listening to, just like stare off into space or close my eyes or something, and like listen to all the individual parts, it's a lot more enjoyable. It also depends on the kind of music you're listening to as well. Things
Certainly.
with lots of like depth and lots of layers are really fun to like attempt to pick out the different layers, and sometimes you can't do it. It's kind of frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, people get pretty intricate with it all, but that is, I think, a really important piece. I feel like for most people, music is kind of background in life. Like, you're having dinner, you put on the radio, or you're out with some friends, you put on some tunes in a speaker. But
yeah,
it's a special thing to really pay attention and look at it with that more critical eye, I guess. So that's why I was curious. But on the subject of actually listening to music, you have a great way of discovering new things, making yourself listen to new things. So could you tell me a little bit about your wish list and kind of how you do it?
Oh yeah, so I have way too much, like I want to listen to way too much music. Like there's just too many albums I want to listen to, but obviously I don't have like time and attention span to listen to that much new music. So on that Rate Your Music website, there's a wish list feature where you can add albums to your wish list. And so what I do is I kind of have a limit on that wish list. Like I don't want to put too many things on it, because I know the moment there's like too many things, I'm gonna stop caring about it. So I put a limit, and then I can't add any more albums. If it's like at the limit, I can't add any more albums. So it's kind of motivation to like listen to them, to like clear the wish list so I can put new stuff on there. Because sometimes I see something, I'm like, this looks really cool. Like I think I'm gonna love this. But then if I can't like save it anywhere, I'm just gonna forget about it. So it's kind of motivation to listen to new things. And yeah, before I use this site, I never listened to full albums either. Which I don't know. I know, different people listen to different music, or different people listen to music differently. But I basically have this one giant playlist. It's about to hit 3,000 songs, and I just put that on shuffle. So that's kind of what I did. And then I don't know how I would discover new things. I honestly can't remember. But now I like sit through albums and like listen to them on purpose, which I never really did before. And it's really cool because there's lots of things that you can only really pick up on if you listen to the album and, like hear the context and stuff.
Exactly. That's just what I was about to ask you. Do you feel like listening to albums gives more context to the songs in them? Definitely.
There's times where where a song has been released as a single, and I'm like, this sucks. I like it's on the album, and I'm like, whoa, this is really good. So sometimes the context makes it, different, or makes you hear it differently, or it serves a purpose in the album. And one of the albums that came out recently, called Mercurial World, excuse me, by Magdalena Bay. All the songs transitioned into each other very well. And that's something you would not hear unless you listen to the album like front to back. And not only that, it loops. So the end of the album loops into the beginning of the album. So if you have the album on loop, it like loops, which is really cool. And yeah, that kind of stuff you can't hear unless you listen to the album.
Definitely. Are there any albums or things that have come out recently that you've been really enjoying? Like, what's your last week or 2 weeks of music? What does that look like?
Yeah, so recently there was a new JPEG Mafia album, and I really like that. So I've been listening to a lot of that. And then that Magdalena Bay album, I'm infected. I can't stop listening to it.
It's dangerous.
So, yeah. I had 2 midterm exam recently, and I was just looping it while taking the exam, and I did really well on both of them, so I'm going to accredit that to Magdalena Bay.
Hell yeah.
So thank you.
Too good.
That's a great high five.
I'm amazed I didn't miss.
Good job.
Thank you, John. All right, those are some banging albums. I listened to the Mercurial World. I freaking really like Dominoes. It's got a big poppy vibe.
Heck yeah.
And New Peggy is great, so I get it. But what was I gonna say? Let me flip a page here. I got more questions.
Oh boy,
more questions. I'm curious as to if you use music as a tool, and if so, like what way would you do that?
I totally use music as a tool. I was talking to someone the other day, and I was like, yeah, I have music on while doing anything. they're like, what? Like, does it not distract you? And I'm like, no, not really. In fact, most of the time I feel that it makes me more productive, depending on the thing I'm doing, but especially when I'm coding, actually, music makes me a lot more productive. Something about, like, I don't know, it just gets me excited and keeps me going. So I totally use music to, like, I don't know, just puts me in a good mood, basically. And yeah. So I'm rarely not listening to music.
Yes.
Yes.
No, it's a good thing. I love my music. I think it's a powerful thing, but all I found is it's really hard to write and listen to lyrics at the same time, but otherwise
It's true, but I don't listen to lyrics, so not a problem.
John's too powerful.
I'm built different.
I'm curious if you have any aspirations to make music, and if so, what influences you to want to do that?
I would love to make music. I just am incompetent at it. And I know I could put in effort to, like, learn. Like, I know that's how it works, but I haven't found the motivation or time to do that. I even have the tools. Like, I have a MIDI keyboard, and, like, I have Ableton, which is a music production program. And yeah, I would love to. One day I will. And what motivates me? I don't know. Sometimes I get things in my head. I'm like, this would be cool if it existed, but I can't make it. So it's stuck in my head.
All right. Are there any artists in particular that inspire you to want to make music?
Yes. One of my favorite artists is called Sweet Trip. And they make, I was talking about shoegaze earlier. They make shoegaze and, like, just really kind of glitchy music. And I love glitchy things. I don't know why. I just find it very pleasing to hear glitchy noises. So, and I'm not alone either. You know, there's, like, JPEG Mafia makes a lot of glitchy music too. He makes glitch hop, which is glitch music and hip hop. So
Glitch hop. Banging. I mean, Injury Reserve made a pretty glitchy sounding album.
That's true, yeah. So I would love to make some cool glitchy, you know, like sample based music. I think that would be fun.
Curious. I want to take a bit of a different turn, because I'm fascinated with how people got to where they are. So, what was young John like? What was little John like? I mean, I have my own answer to this question, because.
Ooh, I want to hear that.
Well, I mean, I just knew you. My memory isn't the best, but.
Well, I have the same problem. I can't remember. I'm gonna be honest. All I can remember is, like, what my parents have told me. Apparently, I was a really cool kid.
Cool kid?
And, like, outgoing and just kind of chill. I'm gonna be honest. I think that's kind of continued.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I don't know if I've changed much.
John's always just been kind of cool and chill.
I've always loved music.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, my dad is a huge music fan, so growing up around him I liked music. He was in a band. Actually, speaking of being in a band, speaking of him being in a band, I'm actually wearing a shirt of the first concert that I ever went to, which is, you probably can't see that, but it was the first show I ever went to, and my dad's band was playing there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's
and
so
for my
cool.
birthday this year, my grandma just, like, shipped me a bunch of old T-shirts, and this was one of them.
Damn.
So, yeah.
That's very cool. I definitely remember marveling about your dad making music, and, like, I think one of his songs was, like, lawnmower instructions in French.
Yeah. I love that so much. I don't know who thought of that, but it's just, like, it's this kind of, like, really loungy, like, bossa nova kind of beat. And it's just one of my uncles reading the lawnmower instructions in French in just a comedically bad French accent. And I love it so much.
I mean, it's pretty original. I've never even thought of that.
No, I don't know. I don't know if it's. I mean, I love it, but I don't know if it's, like, good.
I mean, what is good, right? It's
very
all,
true. Yeah.
It's all personal preference.
Yeah.
That's one thing in music communities that always irks me is how judgmental people are.
I hate that too. And I used to be really judgmental until I started joining those communities, and they're like, yeah, I hate those people. And I'm like, what? I would never be those people. And then, yeah.
Then you were not?
And then I was not. And I was like, man, yeah, that's not very nice.
I'm glad to hear there's some personal growth there. That's always a great thing.
Redemption.
As far as personal growth goes too, I'm curious as to how our youth outdoor education class, as well as your experience with getting into mini school, has helped you grow.
Well, I don't know too much because it's hard to know what would have happened if I didn't. So, but I don't know. They were very interesting experiences. I mean, Wyoming especially, where we just went on big hiking and backpacking trips. I had never. That was crazy. Like I had never done anything even remotely as challenging as that, and just like interesting. And I love to travel and stuff too. So, that was like really good. I don't know how it helped me grow really. I think I was pretty ignorant in high school, so I don't know. I don't know if I really paid attention to anything, any of the like good lessons we learned. In hindsight, like I can see it, all the cool stuff we did, but I don't know. At the time, I was just kind of enjoying it at face value.
I mean, hindsight's always 20/20. So usually, if something did cause you to grow or impacted you, it might not be till later that you really realize the effect it's had on you.
Totally. Although I will say, I know you mentioned the STEM program earlier. That very viscerally changed me, because first of all, it took up half of my schooling time, and the two teachers that ran STEM, Mr. Hangeveld and Mr. Janzi, who were both really amazing. They do not do school like most other school. It's like completely different. And the whole idea was that it was supposed to be like when you're in the industry. So when you actually go get a job, and it's not that I didn't believe them, but when I actually got a job, I was like, wow, they were very right. Like, this is exactly how it works, at least in my limited experience of, one job. But
a whole job.
Yeah, like the evaluations we did in STEM were very similar to the ones that I did with my boss, like about programming, which was really cool. In hindsight, I was like, wow, like I learned how to do this stuff, and like all that fail fast, fail often, and just kind of like figuring things out. Normally in school, it's not really a thing. Like, you're not really let to just kind of figure things out, right? Normally you get a textbook or something to study from, right, where you have like a person telling you what to do. But in STEM, they were just kind of more there as mentors. So they would kind of guide you and lead you in the right direction and answer your questions and stuff, but they weren't really like teaching you like, hard things. Well, they were doing that too, because they have to. It's part of the curriculum and stuff. But a lot of it was just kind of figure it out yourself. And yeah, that was a really valuable skill to learn, especially as a programmer. Because remember I was saying that's like one of the most important skills. So that definitely changed me like quite a bit.
The skill of learning to fail. And
the skill of that and like figuring stuff out on your own. Just like being
very valuable,
being left to do something.
Truly. Those are amazing things to incorporate into your life. Freaking, what a better thing to do than learn.
I know. I wish like there was more opportunity for people to learn like that, because it was like one school and one program, and they only had limited space too, so not everyone could do it. But yeah, I hope that schooling goes closer to that direction in the future.
Yeah, I think it will, because clearly there's something to it, and the systems will have to change eventually. Things are changing slowly but surely. Like my mom's program is designed to be a lot more like that. She's making a program, and that's what seems like the future of education is going to be. So it's exciting. It's a great prospect. And
I am really glad to have been a part of that. Like, as
Totally.
one of the first people doing that.
And we just had a very lucky high school experience, I think.
Almost definitely, which is kind of funny because the high school we went to was not particularly nice. Like,
shout out to Templeton.
Shout out to Templeton Secondary. School kind of sucks.
But what we did was awesome. We got to hike, play with robots. You got STEM and mini and shit. It's like, wow.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Well, that's a bit of a side turn from the three things I said we would want to talk about, but that's okay. That's okay.
I love some unexpected questioning.
I mean, you gotta.
I'm not gonna lie, I was expecting the unexpected questioning.
Damn.
I'm one step ahead of you.
All right. So, I want to talk about bikes and cities and stuff, because I think that's interesting.
I love bikes and cities.
Those are great things.
How did you know?
Wait a minute. So, I guess I want to start off a bit more on what you like about biking? I know long distance biking has always been something you've had your eye out for. So what is it about getting on a bike and going somewhere that appeals to you?
I genuinely don't know.
Okay.
It's fun. I don't get it. I don't think there's any particular reason. I mean, there's some stuff like it's kind of fun to see new places, but I don't know. That's kind of superficial. I don't know. It's just kind of fun. I don't get it. I'm sorry, I can't answer that question very well.
That's okay. I'm just curious, asking around. So do you know about the plan to improve human powered transport in Vancouver? Do you know what the city is doing with that?
I know a little bit.
Human powered, by the way. Only human powered.
Yeah. So in Vancouver, there's kind of there's this organization called TransLink, and most people know them here for being public transit. But they actually do a lot more things. So they also maintain roads and cycle infrastructure and walking infrastructure, and basically anything that anyone uses to get around, TransLink probably has its fingers in. So they're responsible for most of the, well, I can't say all, like the bike infrastructure, because I know we actually had a mayor in Vancouver that just built a bunch of bike infrastructure and like didn't care what anyone said, and which turns out was a good thing, because the people who like cared were dumb, and then they were like, wait a sec, bike lanes are good, why were we in opposition to that? So shout out to that guy. But yeah, I'm not sure other than what TransLink has. So I know TransLink has a really big plan. Yeah. To put in 850 kilometers of new bike infrastructure.
800 through just the Vancouver or the greater Vancouver area?
This is through the whole Fraser Valley. And when I say like new bike infrastructure, I mean they have a term. It's called AAA bike infrastructure. And yeah, and it stands for all ages and abilities. So that would be like you could take your kid on that kind of. It's not just like a bike lane. It's like a protected bike path that you could take a child on. So it's very cool considering the amount of like stuff we have like that right now is kind of pathetic. It's really like there isn't very much of it. So they're like probably building 20 times the amount that we currently have, which is really exciting.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you know what's going on with skateboarding?
I do. Yes. I love this. I learned about this fantastic YouTube channel called About Here, run by Yute Lee. I think that's how you say his name. I'm sorry if I butchered it. But he's shout out to Yute Lee. I love that guy so much. But he makes really cool videos about city planning and like city policy in Vancouver. And he recently did a video about skateboarding and the city. I learned in up until 2005, I think from the 80s or 90s, skateboarding was banned. So you weren't allowed to skateboard like outside of skateboarding parks, of which there weren't very many. And yeah, then they reversed the ban, and this year they have this big plan to like make skateboarding really good. So they're embracing, they're building a whole bunch of new skate parks, but beyond that, they're embracing places, skate-friendly places. I think that's what they called them, where basically they're just kind of like plazas, like basically things that would be good for skating, but that aren't built for skating. So like a fountain or like stairs or something like that.
The Vancouver Art Gallery is a big place.
Exactly, yeah. There's a whole bunch of... Actually, I did not know this, but apparently Vancouver is like a really big skating hub and was like one of the first places in North America to like really like build parks and stuff.
First skate shops in Canada, Skull Skates in Kitsilano.
Heck yeah. So it's really cool that we're like going back and like, redeeming ourselves a little bit and creating hopefully a much better environment to skate in.
Truly. Friggin' hostile infrastructure sucks.
It sucks so much and is so extremely lame.
Big L. I mean, unless you get good enough to do tricks off the hostile infrastructure, but then you're just at like another level.
Yeah. Then you're just sticking it to the city and you're like, what are you going to do? Build hostile infrastructure? That's not going to stop me.
Just going to skate on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's a cool thing. It's a really cool thing. It's amazing that people are embracing it. I think the Olympics has a big thing to do with that.
Yeah, and that's super cool. And I know there's a couple of sports currently going through that too. Skateboarding was like that this Olympics, and then there was climbing as well, which is super cool. There's a lot of new sports. I never thought about this before, but ever since you got me into climbing, You were telling me about the history of climbing, and I was like, wait, it's only like 30 or 40 years old or something like that, like, you know, like sport climbing. And I was like, wow, I can't believe we're still inventing new sports. And it's kind of cool that we get to watch some of them become like real sports right now. Like climbing is part of the Olympics, and skateboarding, and, you know, longboarding, and breakdancing is part of the Olympics, which rules. I love that so much. So yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. I think it's so cool that people's views are being expanded outside the traditional kind of like air quote sports that everyone does through college or high school or whatever. It's cool that people are just doing their own thing and it's getting recognized. So, and
we live in a pretty great city for that too.
Friggin' oh my god,
skateboarding, the longboarding, the climbing,
everything's here.
Yeah. So to Vancouver,
rare and based. Also expensive. Jesus.
No comment.
No comment. So, I'm curious about what do you think that, or what do you think that are some things that Vancouver does really well in city planning, and what are some things it does rather poorly?
So there are a lot of very smart people who have written books about this. There's a thing called Vancouverism, which is like, it's a way of designing a city basically, named after Vancouver because we did it so well. And actually, like, if you compare Vancouver to the world, it kind of like it's okay. But if you compare it to North America, it's like wild. It's like so much better than most other cities. It's crazy. And you can really notice this if you travel outside of Vancouver. So, for example, I don't think there's any highways that go through Vancouver. Like the city of Vancouver, like the official boundaries. There's kind of like one on the east part, I don't know, kind of touches it, but not really, right? Cities like Seattle have huge freeways through downtown. And it sucks. Like really awful, horrible in like so many different ways. It like totally kills your city. And so Vancouver didn't do that. They were trying to. And of course, like in typical North American, you know, like white people fashion, they were trying to destroy like racialized neighborhoods to build a freeway, and people were not cool with that. So they didn't. And then they continued to not. And now that we live in the future, people have realized that building highways through cities is a terrible idea. And so we sort of stopped doing that. Unless you're Austin, Texas, and you're expanding your highway to be 28 lanes through the center of your city, which is nuts. Because if you were to imagine crossing that as a pedestrian, even if you were to walk over a bridge, that's a long-ass bridge to walk over a highway. And that, like, totally kills. There's a dead zone. You can't put anything there. So, yeah. Vancouver does that really well. And something I learned recently is that in Vancouver we have laneway houses, which are basically houses built in a backyard that open out onto the lane. And I don't know how, but I ended up on the Wikipedia article for laneway houses, and they're like, this is a Vancouver thing. I'm like, what? Like, really? This only happens here? Well, I don't know only, but it started here, and it's kind of big here. And I really like laneway houses. They're really cute. I live in one, and I love it. It's great. So shout out to laneway houses.
What are some things that Vancouver does terribly wrong?
Luckily, not that many. In terms of like urban city planning and stuff, we're pretty solid. But there is definitely, like, if you leave Vancouver, it kind of sucks again. So I remember I mentioned earlier that I was taking buses for fun, and so I went out into like one of the suburbs called Pitt Meadows, and so just looking around, like, it's like strip mall. It's like it's completely different from like the city of Vancouver. So yeah, the suburbs are still like kind of bad, but I think they're aware of it, and they're trying to fix it.
At least they're self-aware. The one thing that has always irked me about Vancouver housing is the Vancouver specials.
Oh yeah,
because
those just suck.
The freaking basements are 6'2". So instead of building 3 floors, which would cost more money, they just built 2 floors houses with really big basements to sell it as a 3-floored house that they only had to pay 2 floors to make. So all the basements here, if you're above 6 foot, which luckily I'm not.
Wow.
Terrible, I know. But it is true. Like everything's short.
Yeah.
It kind of sucks.
Yeah, I can't fit in the older SkyTrains. When I'm sitting in the seat, like I have to spill over into the next one. I literally cannot fit.
Too thick.
It kind of sucks. Oh, and also I thought of a way better answer to the what does Vancouver do poorly?
Thank you.
Which is zoning. Our zoning sucks. So if you look at like Vancouver, there's a whole bunch of condos in downtown, and then just single family homes everywhere else. Only one person can occupy, like a huge plot of land, right? And of course, Vancouver, being Vancouver, has a horrible housing crisis where everything is like completely unaffordable, and people don't really have anywhere to live. So it's insane that huge swaths of land are just taken up by single family houses, because there's great alternatives to that, which not just condos, but like smaller apartment buildings that only have like 4 units or something in them, and stuff like living above like a convenience store. There's a couple of those in Vancouver, but they're rare because they're illegal, which is nuts. And they're really nice. Like you can live above a cafe, which is like the best thing ever, because you can just go to the cafe, whenever you want. But yeah, the zoning sucks. So there's large parts of Vancouver where you can't build anything but a single family home. So I think we should fix that.
I had no idea. Crazy. Are there any other countries that you really look up to for their planning or transit?
Yes. There's a lot of Europe just does things well for city planning in general. And my favorite example of this is this city in Finland. And luckily we're in Vancouver. We don't have to deal with this a lot, but a lot of other Canadian cities get snow in the winter, like a lot of snow. And this is kind of pushed as an excuse that, people can't bike. People can't cycle to work regularly because in the winter it will snow and then they can't bike. But there's this city in Finland where it's like very snowy. I mean, it's Finland. And like there's some insane number, like percentage of people bike, like very high. I don't want to quote a statistic because I might just be way off. But people bike there through the winter. In fact, the rates of cycling don't go down through the winter. And this is because people have like bikes that are built for it, but most importantly is they put effort into maintaining the bike infrastructure. So here what happens is like snowplows will go and clear roads and nothing else. But up there they will have snowplows that will clear the bike paths so that bikes can use them during the winter. So they have like really high cycling rates of during the winter, which is really cool.
That is cool. And the friggin' more people off cars is a great thing for the planet, for everyone.
Exactly.
Bikes are pretty magical.
Shout out bikes.
Bikes are cool. Are there any ideas that you think should be utilized that aren't? Like, is there anything that you know about that you just are so frustrated to see people not do?
Like for like city planning?
Yeah.
Yes. Man, I could generate such a long list. Yeah, because especially I won't. Don't worry. But yeah, in North America we suck at things. We're just so incompetent at city planning for some reason. I don't understand why, but one of the worst things is called a strode, and it's a mix between a street and a road. And I'm going to describe it to you, and you're going to go, "Oh, that sounds very familiar," because unfortunately it is, because they're everywhere. And it's basically like a street that has lots of things on it, right? So lots of shops and like turns or like driveways and stuff. But it's really high throughput, like it's really fast traffic. And so if you like want to walk down that, it sucks because you got people like turning into driveways and stuff. And you have to cross, and you always check your shoulder, and you're right next to like high traffic. And it's typically just strip mall too. Like there's no walkability. There's no community. You're just like in a strip mall, and you go to your shop and then just leave. And so those really suck so much. But there's so many of them. But yeah, luckily we're trying to fix that. I think we've realized that it's bad, but we still haven't stopped building them.
Freaking strodes.
So frick strodes. My worst enemy.
All right, I respect it. That does sound like a rather dreadful way to build your cities, and I'm thinking of all the roads that would be so nice if you could just walk in them.
Yeah, and by the way, they're horribly unprofitable. they lose cities so much money.
I would imagine. It makes me think of France, on this little island that I visit sometimes. And you got these roads with stores, and they're blocked. Like, cars don't drive on roads with stores, and you just walk down and there's people, everyone's talking, you got like people playing music, and
It's so good.
This is fantastic.
It's so good. And there's a couple places in Vancouver kind of like that. But what's really exciting is I was talking about TransLink earlier, and they released this big plan for the next 30 years called Transport 2050. And it's their big plan, everything from transit to, driving and stuff. And they have lots of ambitious goals, like to stop traffic fatalities, which I respect, but also good luck.
People are stupid.
People are dumb. But one of the things they really pushed was like walkability and just like streets as places rather than something else. Basically, a street you would go to rather than just walk through to get somewhere, right? A place to go, right, where you can hang out and feel comfortable and not be run over.
Yeah, I mean, Commercial Drive is the only like really local place that makes me think of that. And even then, you still have cars. Commercial Drive and First Avenue and Main and Granville, all those places going through. Well, not Main. I don't even know how cities work, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get you. So, they want to fix that. They want to create more of those like walkable, just like people first. I think that's what they say, people first streets, and not car first. But who knows if they actually will.
It's always a mystery.
We can hope.
We can always hope, and I think it points to a brighter future at the very least.
Indeed.
I have my unanswered question or unfinished question here. It just says, "What's your?" I
don't know what my.
No.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have a good answer for that question.
How about what's your favorite color?
That's tough.
Seriously?
Not really. I really like pink. I think pink is an underrated color.
Pink is an underrated color.
But there's lots of things I would not color pink. Number one being my car. I would not own a pink car. Shout out to you if you have a pink car, though. I'm not hating. I'm just personally, I would not have a pink car.
What would you have pink?
I would have a wall pink. Honestly, I don't really know. I just like pink is cool. I like pink.
You're not wrong. That's all the questions I had for you, John.
Incredible.
So, thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. That was really fun.
It is kind of fun. I always forget to do this, but I'd love to say thank you to people because a lot of people have really supported me in doing this. So, thank you, Reiner. You've been such a help for literally everything. I would not be here if it was not for you. Thank you to my old man, my dad, for which I have some of this lovely equipment, and thank you to my mother, for who I have a house, which is kind of incredible, and
so true.
Cushions to sit on. So
very nice cushions, I may add.
Imported from Thailand, but you don't get to see them.
Oh, lame. I mean, you can kind of describe them. They've got funky patterns, and they're kind of like it's like a circular prism. That's not a real thing, is it?
I think it's just a cylinder.
Cylinder. Oh, that's what I was looking for. They're just like kind of short cylinders.
Another person I have to give a big thank you to is my dear friend Sam Mitchell. Oh, there's more people actually, but Sam Mitchell, thank you. You made me music. I have theme music.
Oh, what the heck?
I know, it's amazing.
Oh, I'm excited to hear that.
And the other person I must thank is Noah, because he's the only reason I can stick any of these videos together at all. So thank you, Noah. I love you. I love you all. And
shout out to those great people.
Thank you for tuning in. If you actually listened, what the heck? I love you all, and have a good night.